So this is a fun one. We've done so much in so many different directions. We've spent a lot of time talking to orthopedic surgeons. We pivoted to some other things, regenerative medicine, the OG box opener. But I thought we'd go old school, go back to the trenches here. And we have an amazing guest. His name is Dr. Dhanur Damodar. He's the chief resident, University of Miami Orthopedic Residency. And he's just a great guy. He found me. I loved it. He sort of DM'd me on LinkedIn. That's how we connected. And he's going to be an amazing orthopedic surgeon. He's just done so much in his early part of his career. He's going to Rush to do a sports medicine fellowship next year. And he gives us a really cool perspective about what training is like now and his desire to be an orthopedic surgeon. It's a lot of fun. I know you're going to like it. We continue to thank our sponsor, OrthoLaser Orthopedic Laser Centers. They continue to offer MLS M8 technology for chronic and acute orthopedic pain as an alternative source to opioids and possibly even avoiding surgery. The franchises continue to spread across the country. It's an amazing opportunity for orthopedic surgeons and doctors and even medical device reps to become part of the growing technology. OrthoLaser Milwaukee and OrthoLaser Rochester just opened. We have another 5 in the queue. Come and join the OrthoLaser franchise family. Hashtag follow the fro.
From medical media, this is The Ortho Show.
Hello world, Dr. Scott Sigmund, your favorite opioid-sparing orthopedic surgeon here for another episode of the Ortho Show podcast, where we bring you the best of the orthopedic space. We've been all over the world. We've been having a lot of fun lately, and we're going to go to Miami, down to maybe even South Beach, maybe for a little bit of a story or two, but bottom line is we're going into the trenches of orthopedic training with Dr. Dhanur Damodar, who's the chief resident of orthopedics down at the University of Miami Jackson Memorial Hospital. He did his undergraduate training at USC as well as medical school at USC, grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. Dhanur, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, brother.
Hey, Dr. Sigmund. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for slumming it with a resident after all these famous attendings that I'm following. I appreciate it.
No, it's fantastic. But that's what we want to do. We've had we do so many different things. We've had, we did regenerative medicine last week. We've had, the OG of box openers, Cyril Romer, group company chairman of Johnson & Johnson. We've had amazing orthopedic surgeons that are at the end of their career, in the midst of their career. And I thought it would be great just to get a snapshot of what's happening in training right now. And I think that being down at University of Miami, the Jackson Memorial Hospital system, I know you're getting amazing training. We want to hear all about it. But before we get there, we always like to find out, it's like, where did the passion for orthopedics come from? You're in Louisville, Kentucky. How early was it that you knew that that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think it's always different for all of us. Everyone kind of has their athletic injury that spurs their interest in orthopedics. And I was a soccer player and a tennis player, and I was spraining my ankles left and right and, not kind of seeing orthopedic surgeons, getting MRIs and just the simplicity of some of the things that an orthopedic surgeon was doing to get me back to playing was kind of where it all started. But I think I kind of had a unique story as well, just growing up. I know I grew up in Louisville, but I was actually born in India, lived in Hong Kong for a couple of years before I moved to Louisville. And I had kind of a differing perspective, I guess, on the world. I came from an Asian country and moved to the South. And then I grew up in Louisville, and my family friends, a lot of them were physicians. My parents weren't. And hearing kind of their day-to-day and some of the things that they did is what really spurred that initial interest I had in medicine. And then the rest was history. I mean, I loved sports. I loved taking care of athletes, and the orthopedic surgeons and the things they did for me kind of solidified that interest from an early age.
Yeah, that's a common thread. We get, a lot of sports medicine guys come from an athletic career. And we've heard that from Dr. Mary O'Connor, who was on the U.S. Olympic team for crew from Yale. And so it's a very common theme that we've heard across the Ortho Show for sure. Now, I think it's interesting because I really like this. I mean, how did we connect? You just DM'd me out of the blue and you were just like, I want to talk to this guy. Is that right? Remind me.
Absolutely. It's funny. I always kind of tell this to some of the younger med students and undergrads who ask me for advice about what to do. And, I think you do it respectfully, but I was on LinkedIn. I was kind of building up my profile. And truthfully, I saw the cool stuff you were doing. I mean, I was like, wow, there's an orthopedic surgeon here. He's in sports medicine. He's an entrepreneur. He's active on social media. He's got a podcast. These are kinds of things that I'm interested in doing. And in my spare time, I want to kind of make the most out of everything. And so I figured, why not reach out to Dr. Sigmund, see if he's going to be willing to talk to me and then give me some advice. And I think one of the big things that I've learned over the years is you find good mentors and people that are kind of passionate about your career and are willing to help you and seem approachable, and you reach out to them and if they're willing to talk to you, I think there is a ton to be gained from those sort of encounters. So
that was brilliant. Great move. I mean, it's so funny. I mean, if we're going to be out there like the Corey Callendines of the world, Steve Moras, that just see these amazing social media posts and all the things that they're doing. If you're going to put yourself out there, then you got to be able to receive too. So it was great. As soon as you DM me, we picked up and we had a great conversation. And look, here you are on the Ortho Show podcast, brother. So it's all full circle. Good for you. And it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. We'll talk some more about some of the other stuff that we're going to do together as well. But I always say, at the table of innovation, at the table of entrepreneurs or leading knowledge people, there's always a seat at the table for you. All you have to do is have the courage to ask and be one apart. I mean, people love the idea that someone like yourself would reach out and want to and have a conversation. So kudos to you. I think that was awesome. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about residency. I mean, I got to pull the old man card here. When I was in school, we did 120 hours a week. We really did. I mean, we were on call like every other night. And residency back then wasn't all about just learning. It was also a service. We probably 70% what I did, I think, was education, but the other 30% was putting in IVs. We were drawing blood. We put in Foleys. I mean, it was like crazy stuff that you guys would never even think about. You probably have no idea how to draw blood right now. Correct? Am I wrong?
absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
Exactly. So that's what we did. I mean, so it was like 30% of what we did was sort of a payback to the hospital because they paid our salary. So, but then they changed all the rules, and we wanted to make sure that the residents could get their teeth cleaned, to make sure they could change the oil in their car. And then all of a sudden it was like maxed out, right? You could only do like 80 hours a week or something like that. So what are the rules now and what's going on?
That's so funny. Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you say that and it's funnier even because as a chief, I kind of do that to the junior residents. And I'm like, back when I was a 2 and back when I was an intern, we did this and we did this. And, now you guys are coming up here. And so it never changes. But I mean, truthfully, I think your generation was the one that really kind of set the tone and worked and defined the term residency, right? Like living at the hospital. Whereas I definitely think it's easier on us. I mean, we have an 80-hour work week, which is what it is, and we have to follow it as per ACGME. There's certainly some programs, as you know, in the country that are going to be busier than others, where you have level 1 trauma call at a busy county hospital and you're up all night. And yeah, you're going to be going home the next day, but you got work to do. So that work's going to get done at some point, and you got to figure out when that's going to get done. And so I think, down at Miami, I've been fortunate because it's a busy county hospital. Same thing as where I went to med school in LA. Tons of exposure, tons of training, tons of reps, tons of patients. You got to learn how to speak Spanish. You got a couple things going on. So definitely not quite what you had, I'm sure, but I think I've been lucky to have a hospital that has forced me to sort of step out of my comfort zone, do a lot of things I might not have done at a sort of cushier training program, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, look, we all like to joke, like I walked to school uphill one way, I took another way home to walk uphill again, the same way. But at the end of the day, a lot of what we were doing really didn't need to be done by our level of training. So if you eliminate the service side of it, and then you really look back to say that, it's how many reps, you really need the reps. I mean, that's what residency is all about, is you need to learn how to do this stuff because you're going to do another year of fellowship, but then you're going to go out and be an attending surgeon. You're going to be taking care of people. So we want to make sure that you guys are knife ready and knowledgeable and know the indications as well as good surgical techniques. So, but I mean, come on. I mean, the trauma's calls got to suck, man. Come on. That place rocks it out, right? It's got to be crazy.
You get crushed. I mean, I can think back to a couple Saturdays when I was on 24-hour call and, I had 30 consoles. Now I was in the trauma bay in recess, and I walk in there and they look up at me and they're like, "We got 9 for you." And I look around and there's, 4 traction pins, 5 reductions. I once splinted a guy who came in. I splinted his entire body, I think. I mean, it almost got to the point where it was a joke. I was like, I'm not doing this guy a service. I mean, I need to immobilize his broken bones, but I got bilateral sugar tongs going up into coaptation splints. I got long leg splints on both of his legs. Like I'm putting a boot on his foot. It's wild.
Yeah, no, I trained at University of Maryland and spent some time at Shock Trauma, which, again, was one of those places where you were proud to wear the pink scrubs because that was like, that was the scrubs for Shock Trauma. But man, it was brutal as far as the time. And I'll never forget, it was like inner city Baltimore, there's always kind of a lot of trouble going on. But there was this one guy that really was causing all the trouble. His name was some dude because every single guy said the same thing. Man, who did this to you? How'd this happen? Oh, it was some dude. It was like, I'm like, you gotta watch out for that some dude guy. He's pretty bad. But it's I'm sure you get some of the knife and gun club stuff too going on. But it's crazy stuff, but it's important. And I know that the program also has an amazing sports medicine program. I'm sure you have an amazing recon. I'm sure you're getting all the subspecialties of orthopedics that are happening down there as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, I kind of sat on the residency selection committee the last couple of years, and I always like giving them general advice about what to look for in a program. And what was great about the training at the University of Miami is before I applied for fellowship, I rotated in every subspecialty and I saw it all. And I had some time to talk to those attendings and ask them about what it was like to be in that subspecialty. And it really makes things a lot clearer for you when you apply to fellowship. I think it's a super important thing to look for in a residency training program. And we have it in spades, which is great.
Yeah, great advice for all those residents or medical students that are out there listening that are thinking about orthopedics and the direction that they want to go. Really make sure you do your homework and make sure you understand the program. So, all right, so we're going to switch over to something I'm a little worried about you. I'm a little disappointed. We've got 27 peer-reviewed publications. You were the AANA Resident Scholarship winner, the AANA Ortho-Regeneration Resident Scholarship winner, but I don't see a book anywhere. You haven't written a book. I mean, what's going on here, bro?
I'm slacking big time. I think I gotta write my next book chapter with you, Dr. Sigmund.
Yeah, I love it because that'll be my first too. That's for sure.
Perfect.
But I mean, it's so amazing. I know you've listened to a bunch of the stories. I mean, we got Dr Damodar and Jorge Chala. I mean, these guys are just pulling out these publications like it's nothing going on. But obviously, you've done it amazingly well. You got 27 peer-reviewed publications, and you're just a chief resident. You got a long career to go. So we're thrilled to hear that you're doing well. So tell us about your AANA Resident Scholarship winner. What was that paper?
So actually, it wasn't actually a paper. What it was, which was great, was it was an opportunity to apply as a PGY3 to just go to the AANA meeting, get the meeting paid for, be able to attend a resident and fellow sort of specialty day focused on, talks from incredible surgeons like Dr. Verma and others who were talking about the business side of medicine, what to look for in a fellowship, how to start your career, what things to think about, just kind of makes everything really crystallized for you. And you applied and needed a letter of recommendation and submitted an application with your CV, and they selected a few people. And that meeting, I'm glad you brought it up, was awesome for me because I was able to connect with some really incredible faculty that I would have never had access to. And I tried to keep up those relationships. And I really do think that made a difference for me come fellowship time and the interview trail. And so I couldn't be happier. It was in Orlando too, so I was able to drive up. It was so easy for me.
Well, that's awesome because I know that you're going to Rush this coming September, if I'm not mistaken, for the sports medicine program there, which is arguably one of the top 1 or 2 programs in our country, if not the world, for sports medicine right now. So congratulations. That's fantastic. But I think that's great. I mean, you thought about it and you really put energy and effort into it and figuring out these ways. Then you meet the people, then they get to know you. Especially in the setting of COVID right now. I mean, it's really hard for residents and to be able to travel and be able to do and be able to interview and do all these things and really be able to identify them. So kudos to you and Jorge Chala and the crew up there, Brian Cole, Nick Verma. You must be super excited for that program.
I'm so excited. I'm super fortunate, and I'm gonna remember that every day that I'm there. try to get the most out of it that I can.
Yeah, no, it will be. And hopefully all the sports will be back. So you'll be going and checking out all the sports teams and doing all that cool stuff, plus working with some really amazing orthopedic surgeons who are at the top of their game. So I'm sure that will be a fantastic year for you. All right. So there's another thing. I'm not sure if you can talk about it, but it was really cool. I sort of dug into your CV. You got a submission publication right now on the impact of social media presence, age, patient-reported wait times on physician review websites of sports medicine surgeons. Can you talk about it, or is it in submission and you really can't talk about it?
No, absolutely. It's a really interesting topic. Funnily coming from me, because I call myself, Dr. Sigmund, socially irrelevant because I didn't have my own personal Instagram. And I get crap from all my buddies because they have to send my wife funny like videos and pictures and stuff they want to actually get to me. So I'm ironically maybe not the best person to be publishing a study on social media, but I really got interested in it because it's starting to become a huge part of orthopedics and a huge part of medicine, and a lot of residents are very involved with their social media profiles. So what we did was we looked through basically just publicly available database at all the surgeons, and we did it for arthroplasty as well, but for sports medicine as well. And then we went on the review websites like Health Grades and Vitals, and we looked at the reviews of each physician, their wait times. We didn't dig into their comments because that was going to be probably a whole nother project into itself. And then we tried to see if the presence of them having a professional social media account affected those ratings. And what we found was there was trends towards those ratings being affected, but it wasn't significant. But what was cool was that we found that a lot of the people who had a professional social media account had more comments, more reviews, better wait times, actually, and tended to be the younger orthopedic surgeons in the demographic that we split it into. And so one of the things we kind of gleaned from that was that I think it's just engagement. It's being out there, being available. Your patient looks you up, they see you, you have a presence online. All of a sudden you seem more relatable. They can even message you. I know that's going a little far sometimes, but they have a vehicle to kind of see you out in the world other than just in the office. And I think that can certainly affect your reviews and your perception. So that was a cool project to work on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think one of the other things that I would think about for that is that the doctors that really are engaged within social media are concerned about their image by definition. And so therefore, they're also going to be more concerned about their reviews. So therefore, you're hopefully going to be generating positive reviews. I mean, that's what I do. I mean, I actually have a service, Dr.com, that we use because you want, the average person, for them to sort of go home and do a review, it takes a lot of energy, right? And
Right.
so you want to try and make it easy for them. So there's a lot of different services that are out there, but you can give them a tablet and you just say, hey, do you mind giving us a review? Or there's other services where you can get them through your EMR. It gets texted directly to them and they can do that. But I think that the doctors that understand that it's not just hanging up your shingle anymore, that it's really about your presence and that people check you out and they're looking for you on reviews and that people will come to you and they will search you out. It's not just a primary care doctor referring a patient to you anymore. I mean, that's super important to have that whole aspect of your brand, your professional brand that people are looking for, that they want to come and find you.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. I think that's another great point. I mean, I think the reality is those physicians with social media accounts are more engaged. They're reaching out to their patients. They're saying, hey, you had a positive experience. Would you mind just hopping on this real quick and talking to other people about it? And that truly is a great way to engage them. And I think it's great for the physician. It's sort of a mutually beneficial scenario.
And it's also good for patients. I mean, I say that all the time, right? If you've gone to a doctor and you've had an amazing surgery and a great experience, and that seems unique, why wouldn't you want to be able to share that with other individuals so that they
Right.
know that they can have that experience? Because not all doctors are the same. Some do more or less, or care more or less, or worry about the patient experience, or maybe just the outcome. So being able to really identify and personalize who the doctor is and the type of experience that they're providing for their patient, I feel that social media is a great way to be able to share that and improve overall patient care. So good for you. I'm glad you did that. There's probably a lot more that you could dig into on that. There's definitely some more papers, I'm sure, along the social media pathway that I'm sure you'll be able to take advantage of.
Absolutely. I think it's such an evolving field and within orthopedics and within medicine as a whole. So I'm looking forward to looking more into it.
All right, so now you're doing a lot of cool stuff, man. You got way too much time on your hands because you're in that easy residency thing now, where you only got 80 hours a week. But I'm like, you're doing some healthcare advisory role type stuff too. You're working with a company called Arbutus, as well as I'm familiar with Force. But how did you? So what's the drive to sort of do, entrepreneurial type stuff or things outside of clinical medicine beyond just the scope of treating a joint? What's your desire? Why is that there?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It wasn't something that I think truthfully I thought much about during medical school and really during the early parts of residency. I was really focused on learning as much as I could, working as hard as I could, getting the reps that I needed to get. And then kind of as I went into my chief residency year and I was feeling more comfortable with my operative skills and my clinical skills, I really started to think about how the whole thing worked around me. I have the unique opportunity to work at a surgery center, children's hospital, a VA, a county hospital, a private hospital. And so I'm seeing the functionality, the EMRs, the digital health aspect of things. And then, I have these ideas and I'm thinking, well, this would be great this way. This would be great this way. And I think, kudos to you to actually, I mean, it's guys like you that are entrepreneurs and have these businesses that are running it that kind of make us feel like we can also do it. And I think a great way to start, at least in my thought process, was why don't I give that advice as an advisor or as a consultant, kind of understand how the process works. And if I have my own idea and something that I think that has legs, I can always pursue that down the road. And that was kind of what drove me during my chief year. And so I'm working with this company and I'm helping them come up with projects for skeletal traction uses in level 1 trauma centers. And I'm hoping to kind of branch into the digital health space more because, it's funny, we talk about residency and everything, and you really are on the front lines. Like you take a lot of the practice call and you get a lot of the pages from the patients and you think about post-operative outcomes in the 90-day global period. And residents get a lot of those calls and they kind of know what's happening, on the front lines. They see the patients in the ER. Okay, well, maybe if we had this set up in place, this patient wouldn't have to come into the emergency department and this patient might not get readmitted, or we can do this, this, and this. And so that's kind of where my mind started and everything evolved from there.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, as we come out of COVID, right, the digital transformation of medicine is really going to explode. It just has to, right? We're not going back to what we did before. And I think that your generation, which was literally, I mean, the phone was in your hands, right? I mean, you just have this, amazing supercomputer that's been in your hands since the age of 7 or whatever it is. And you look at life in a different lens, and you can sort of incorporate the different aspects of what's happening in the digital world, of what's in your personal life, and then say, look, why are we doing it the same way that we've always done it in medicine? Let's try something new and different. Let's make the patient experience better. So I think guys like yourself and your generation can really make a difference as we move forwards and hopefully make it better for all of us, for sure. So, all right. So I want to talk to you about this other thing. So I was on the Beyond Medicine podcast with my friend Rami Webby, and he's a internal medicine doc. He just finished his training as well, and he's got this great podcast, and he's a great guy. And he's like, Scott, he's like, have you heard about Clubhouse? And I'm like, well, I've been invited to the Clubhouse, but I'm really not sure what I'm supposed to do in there. I mean, I don't really have a lot of friends in there either. And I'm like, this thing has just blown up. I mean, it has a valuation of $1 billion. I think I got the invite like 3 months ago, maybe. So look, for the old people out there that are listening right now, they're all getting asked to join this Clubhouse. Walk us through what this thing is and why it's important and why you like it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's for all the old people. It's not a club. It's not an actual club. It's an app on the iPhone. It's only on the iPhone as of now, which I would say is one of the downsides of it. It doesn't have an Android interface, but it's really cool. What it is a social media networking app that is audio based, has a basis of clubs. You're a founder of a club. You open a club. So one of the ones I'm involved with that I actually asked you to actually come help out, be an expert panelist on, is a club called the Bone Club.
You got to stop calling me Dr. Sigmund, okay? So there's only one doctor alive that I still call doctor. He's Dr. Steve Snyder. Every time I see Dr. Snyder, I say doctor. But I'm like, you got to call me Scott. All right, keep going.
Scott, okay. So you start a club, you're a founder of a club, and through that club you gain members. Those members are able to open up a room, and that room is essentially an open audio discussion where there's a set of panelists or moderators who are the speakers, and there's people in the audience. The people in the audience can actually raise their hand. So, for example, a world-renowned expert that nobody has access to can be in a clubhouse room, and there could be an audience member that is a high school student. He can raise his hand, he can come on stage and ask his question. And so the access and the connectivity is unbelievable. So the Bone Club that I was talking about is actually predominantly UK surgeons as of now. And I hopped on one of their journal clubs one day and talked about fixing femoral neck fractures from a U.S. perspective. And it was a bunch of UK surgeons. And they thought it was funny that, that a U.S. guy was on. They thought it was cool. They asked me to kind of be more involved. And it kind of went from there. And so now I'm connecting with a bunch of they call them orthopedic registrars,
Sure.
by the way, in the UK, which I didn't know. I'm connecting with a bunch of orthopedic registrars in the UK, orthopedic attendings in the UK, hearing this really cool perspective on what it's like to be an orthopedic surgeon outside of my small bubble, in South Florida at a level 1 trauma center, which I think always broadens your perspective. So I think the beauty of Clubhouse is connecting people that otherwise would have never been connected and giving them a forum to ask questions to people that they might never have asked questions to. It's sort of leveling the playing field, so to speak. So we're going to have a journal club this Sunday at 3:00 Eastern. We're going to be talking all things ACL, so right up your alley. It's going to be hopefully a discussion about quad versus BTB versus hamstring. What do they like to use, fixation techniques, and I think everyone should join it. I think it'll be a really fun hour.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think graft choice is always a great thing to talk about. I'm going to be bombing all over my opioid sparing ACL protocols. Although
I can't wait.
Over there, they don't use a lot of opioids over there anyway. They never got into trouble like we did, but still, it'll be fun to make sure whoever's listening knows that you can do an opioid-free ACL reconstruction at this time. It's funny. I have a sweatshirt made up, and I was on the plane flying down to Dallas to give one of these talks just yesterday. And the guy next to me sort of taps me on the shoulder, and he's like, "Are you an orthopedic surgeon?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, my daughter just had ACL surgery, a month ago. Can you tell me about what that whole thing was about?" So I was like, "Yeah, I'm like a walking billboard." I'm like, "Of course, I'll be happy to talk about it."
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's a real small world for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, man. So we're gonna wrap it up here, but I always like to finish with some messaging for the listeners in particular. So I want you to if you could sum it up, give us a final message for any of the college students or medical students that are out there right now that are listening who want a career in orthopedics. What advice would you give them right now?
I think that's an awesome question. I would say, obviously, first and foremost, crush it, get good grades, set yourself up to be in a position of success. But the one thing that I would say is, it's similar to our situation, Dr. Sigmund, is don't hesitate to reach out to people politely, respectfully, but reach out to people who you think might be great mentors and people that can help guide you along your career. Because for me, that's been invaluable, and that's kind of brought me to the path and the point that I'm at today. Over and above just doing well, getting good step 1 scores, being AOA, or having an honor society behind you. Work hard, and then the last thing I would say is when you're in medical school and you're kind of trying to pick that subspecialty, just be true to yourself and try to find someone who can really tell you what it's like to be an orthopedic surgeon. Because ultimately the level 1 trauma call that you're seeing at the county hospital is a little bit different than Scott Sigmund's practice in Boston. I think it's great to talk to people who have a perspective that's different than what you see at your own institution. And I think it really helps clear things up in your own head.
Fantastic advice for our listeners out there that are thinking about what is still one of the greatest occupations and careers on the planet, orthopedic surgeon, for sure. Well, look, this is exactly what we do on the Ortho Show. Sometimes we pivot to the left a little bit, to the right, but we're always talking about orthopedics, orthopedic surgeons, and their remarkable stories. And this was a real honor to have Dr. Dhanur Damodar on, who's the chief resident down at Jackson Memorial. And He is a bright star in orthopedics. I'm looking forward to following your career. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much, Scott. It's been an incredible pleasure having the experience to be on the Ortho Show. And again, thanks for getting back to me and being a mentor and a resource. I really appreciate that.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Dr. Scott Sigman, #FollowTheFro, host of the Ortho Show. Till next time. Till next time.